Hello everybody, welcome to a daily dose of the Bible. We are reading in Genesis right now, the very beginning of God's interaction with people as recorded in the Bible. I mean, I'm sure he was very busy before this, but obviously he created us. And there's things that are left out, of course. I mean, he's doing stuff all the time for everyone. How could he, we'd each have our own Bible's worth of information about what he did for us during our lives, But we've been reading in Genesis about Jacob, and in chapter 30, we're in chapter 31 right now, and in chapter 30 he has gotten more children, quite a few, and he got tricked by his father-in-law. He said, go ahead and take all the spotted goats and sheep, and then he sent them all away with his own sons, and then Jacob went ahead and created a stronger flock by peeling the branches from a tree and putting them in front of them. That worked, and he got speckled goats and black sheep, and they were all strong, and he made a great flock, while Laban's sheep and goats were the weaker ones. So in chapter 31, all along he was trying to get away from Laban and, go back to his home and see his family again. So in chapter 31, Jacob is going to flee from Laban. Soon, Jacob learned that Laban's sons were grumbling about him. Jacob has robbed our father of everything, they said. He has gained all his wealth at our father's expense. And Jacob began to notice a change in Laban's attitude toward him. Then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your father and your grandfather and to your relatives there, and I will be with you. So Jacob called Rachel and Leah out from the field where they were watching his flock. He said to them, I've noticed that your father's attitude toward me has changed. But the God of my father has been with me. You know how hard I have worked for your father, but he has cheated me, changing my wages 10 times. But God has not allowed him to do me any harm. For if he said, the speckled animals will be your wage, the whole flock began to produce speckled young. When he changed his mind and said, the striped animals will be your wages, then the whole flock produced striped young. In this way, God has taken your father's animals and given them to me. One time during the mating season, I had a dream, and I saw the male goats mating with the females were streaked, speckled, and spotted. Then in my dream, the angel of God said to me, Jacob. And I replied, yes, here I am. The angel said, look up, and you will see that only the streaked and spotted males are mating with the females of your flock. For now I have seen how Laban has treated you. I am the God who appeared to you at Bethel, the place where you anointed the pillar and the stone and made the pillar of stone and made your vow to me. Now get ready and leave this country and return to the land of your birth. Rachel and Leah responded, that's fine with us. We won't inherit any of our father's wealth anyway. He has reduced our rights to those of foreign women. And after he sold us, he wasted the money you paid him for us. Excuse me. All the wealth God has given you from our father legally belongs to us and our children. So go ahead. Ouch. Kitty. Be nice. Alright. So go ahead and do whatever God has told you. So Jacob put his wives and children on camels, and he drove all his livestock in front of him, and he packed all the belongings he had acquired in Padan Aram. He set out for the land of Canaan, where his father Isaac lived. At the time they left, Laban was some distance away, shearing his sheep. Rachel stole her father's household idols and took them with her. Jacob outwitted Laban the Aramean, for they set out secretly and never told Laban they were leaving. So Jacob took all his possessions with him and crossed the Euphrates River, heading for the country the hill country of Gilead. So here he sets off on his grand adventure. The Lord has shown him some neat dreams about, here, look, I'm taking care of you. It's only the speckled goats that are mating. And it's really cool that, you know, he had the confirmation. And that's really like maybe the second time that God spoke directly to Jacob and gave him a direct order. So they're fleeing because Laban is a even worse and mean trickster than Jacob. And so I think Jacob's going to start changing. But, Kitty, come on now. So now Laban is going to pursue Jacob. 3 days later, Laban was told that Jacob fled. Oh, he had a 3-day head start. So he gathered a group of relatives and set out in hot pursuit. He caught up with Jacob 7 days later in the hill country of Gilead. But the previous night, God had appeared to Laban the Aramean in a dream and told him, I'm warning you, leave Jacob alone. Laban caught up with Jacob as he camped in front of the hill country of Gilead. And he set up his camp not far from Jacob's. What do you mean by stealing away like this? Laban demanded. How dare you drag my daughters away like prisoners of war? Why did you slip away secretly? Why did you steal away? And why didn't you say you wanted to leave? I would have given you a farewell feast with singing and music accompanied by tambourines and harps. Why didn't you let me kiss my daughters and grandchildren and tell them goodbye? You've acted very foolishly. I could destroy you, but the God of your father appeared to me last night and warned me, leave Jacob alone. I can understand your feelings that you must go, and your intense longings for your father's home. But why have you stolen my gods? I've rushed away because I was afraid, Jacob answered. I thought you would take your daughters from me by force. But as for your gods, see if you can find them, and let the person who has taken them die. And if you find anything else that belongs to you, identify it before all these relatives of yours, and I will give it back. But Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the idols from the household. Laban went first into Jacob's tent to search there, then into Leah's, and then the tents of the 2 servant wives, and he found nothing. Finally, he went into Rachel's tent. But Rachel had taken the household idols and hidden them in her camel saddle, and now she was sitting on them. When Laban had thoroughly searched her tent without finding them, she said to her father, Please, sir, forgive me if I don't get up for you. I'm having my monthly period. So Laban continued to search, but he couldn't find the household idols. Then Jacob became very angry, and he challenged Laban. What's my crime? He demanded. What have I done wrong to make you chase after me as though I were a criminal? You have rummaged through everything I own. Now show me what you found that belongs to you. Set it out here in front of us before our relatives, for all to see. Let them judge between us. For 20 years I have been with you, caring for you and your flocks. In all that time your sheep and goats never miscarried. In all those years I never used a single ram of yours for food. If any were attacked and killed by wild animals, I never showed you the carcass and asked you to reduce the count of your flock. No, I took the loss myself. You made me pay for every stolen animal, whether it was taken in broad daylight or in dark of night. I worked for you through the scorching heat of the day and through the cold and sleepless nights. Yes, and for 20 years I slaved in your house. I worked for 14 years, earning your 2 daughters, then 6 more years for your flock. And you changed my wages 10 times. In fact, if the God of my father has not been on my side, the God of Abraham and the fearsome God of Isaac, then you would have sent me away empty-handed. But God has seen your abuse and my hard work. That is why he appeared to you last night and rebuked you. Wonder what's going to happen about those idols, though. That's never a good thing, you know. I wonder, but you know, it's amazing that God appeared to Laban and he recognized it and decided to halt his plans to plot Jacob's sheer destruction. You know, you would hope that he would just want good for his daughters and grandkids. I'm not sure. It sounds like he, missed kissing them goodbye, and he understands, but he feels like, why did you sneak out? And Jacob sets out a pretty good example of the treatment that he's actually been going through. And I don't think that Laban really feels like it's been, Laban's been getting the good side of the good end of the stick. I don't know, not the short end of the stick or whatever, but he's been getting the good deal out of the slavery that he's been having from his son-in-law. And so he would understandably want it to keep on going. But they're about to make a treaty. Then Laban replied to Jacob, "These women are my daughters, these children are my grandchildren, and these flocks are my flocks. In fact, everything you see is mine. But what can I do now about my daughters and their children? So come, let's make a covenant, you and I, and it will be a witness to our commitment." So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a monument. Then he told his family members, "Gather some stones." So they gathered stones and piled them in a heap. Then Jacob and Laban sat down beside the pile of stones and ate a covenant meal. To commemorate the event, Laban called the place Jegar Sahadutha, which means witness pile in Aramaic. And Jacob called it Galid, which means witness pile in Hebrew. Then Laban declared, "This pile of stones will stand as a witness to remind us of the covenant we have made today." This explains why it's called Galid, witness pile. But it's also called Mizpah, which means watchtower. For Laban said, "May the Lord keep watch between us to make sure that we keep this covenant when we are out of each other's sight. If you mistreat my daughters, or if you marry other wives, God will see it, even if no one else does. He is a witness to this covenant between us. See this pile of stones," Laban continued, "and see this monument has been set between us. They stand between us as witnesses of our vows. I will never pass this pile of stones to harm you, and you must never pass these stones or this monument to harm me. I call on the God of your ancestors, the God of your grandfather Abraham, the God of my grandfather Nahor, to serve as a judge between us." So Jacob took an oath before the fearsome God of his father Isaac to respect the boundary line. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice to God there on the mountainside, invited everyone to a covenant feast. After they had eaten, they spent the night on the mountain. Laban got up early the next morning. He kissed his grandchildren and daughters and blessed them. Then he left and returned home. And it has been hashed out. That's a good thing. It's family relations. You don't want that to go south, because we all need each other. And family is that first group of friends that we form that we don't get to choose, right? So Jacob fell in love with Rachel, not her father. It never ceases to amaze me how relatable these stories are, how understandable. And I pray that you'll consider Jacob and Laban's relationship and consider all the things that they went through and the healing that God brought to this family at this moment, because they have now vowed to just let bygones be bygones, and they're just going to go forward. They're going to let the past be the past. Here's this monument. Don't ever, from this point forward, we're never going to mean harm for each other. And I think that's a great example of how God can heal families. He spoke to Laban the night before, and he had spoke to Jacob many times. So, God has healing for you. He has a way that will not bring you destruction. It will bring you prosperity, not disaster, future, and a hope. I'm paraphrasing Jeremiah 29:11, but it's one of my favorites, and it's proven over and over in this book that God loves us. He wants the best for us. And all we really have to do is say, "Okay, Lord, show me what that is." Show me the best, and before you know it, you'll be seeking the things of his kingdom, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim.